warm and gently introspective, like a trusted friend who has been through hard times and came out softer, not harder. There's no judgment here, only recognition. Have you ever noticed that money conversations make your chest feel tight? Even when you have enough, there's this quiet worry that follows you around. And when you don't have enough, the shame can be almost unbearable. You're not bad with money. You're not irresponsible. You're not lazy. You just never learned how to feel safe with it. Most of us didn't. And that's not a personal failure. That's a story. One that started long before you ever earned your first paycheck. Today, we're going to trace that story, gently, all the way back to where it began. Because understanding your relationship with money is the first step to changing it. Not with spreadsheets, not with discipline, but with something much quieter: awareness. Think back to when you were very small, maybe 7 or 8 years old. What did money look like in your home? Was it a source of tension or something rarely spoken about? Did you hear things like, "We can't afford that," said with frustration or shame? Or maybe money was never discussed at all, which sent its own kind of message. Children are extraordinary observers. They absorb the emotional weight around money like water into soil. If your parents argued about bills, you learned that money means conflict. If spending was secretive or shameful, you learned that money means something to hide. If your family was comfortable but still anxious, you learned that no amount is ever quite enough. These early experiences quietly became your beliefs, and beliefs, once rooted, shape everything. They shape how you spend, how you save, how you avoid, and how you feel at the end of every month. Most of us are walking around with money stories we've never examined. Stories like, "Rich people are greedy," or "Money is the root of all problems." Maybe, "I'm just not good with numbers," or "People like us don't get to have more." These aren't facts. They're inherited feelings dressed up as truth. And the tricky part is, they often feel completely reasonable from the inside. When you believe money is dangerous, you unconsciously push it away. When you believe you don't deserve abundance, you find ways to sabotage your own progress. When you believe wealth equals corruption, saving aggressively starts to feel almost immoral. None of this is conscious. It happens quietly, in the background, like music you've stopped noticing. But it's shaping every financial decision you make, every single day. Here's something fascinating. Your relationship with money isn't just in your mind. It lives in your body, too. Notice what happens when you open your bank app. Does your jaw clench? Does your breathing get shallow? Notice what happens when someone asks what you earn. Do you feel exposed? Embarrassed? Notice what happens when you think about your financial future. Is it hope or dread? These physical responses are data. They're telling you something important about where you are. Chronic financial stress activates the same part of the brain as physical danger. Your nervous system genuinely cannot tell the difference between a bear and an overdue bill. So if you've been feeling exhausted, scattered, or unable to plan clearly, it may not be laziness. It may be that your nervous system has been in survival mode for a very long time. When something causes us stress, the natural response is to look away. And so many of us have developed a quiet habit of financial avoidance. Not opening the mail, not checking the balance, not making the budget we know we need. Not because we don't care, but because looking feels like confirming something we're afraid is true. That we've failed, that we're behind, that everyone else has figured something out that we haven't. But here's what avoidance quietly costs us. It keeps us in the dark. And in the dark, our imagination fills the silence with worst-case scenarios. The bill we haven't opened is scarier in our minds than it is on the page. The number we haven't checked feels more catastrophic than it usually is. Avoidance promises relief, but delivers only a delayed version of the same fear. There's another layer to this that we need to talk about honestly. We live in a time when other people's financial lives are constantly visible to us. The holiday, the apartment, the wardrobe, the life that looks effortlessly abundant. And our minds, without our permission, begin to measure. We compare our insides to other people's outsides, and we always seem to fall short. What we don't see is the debt behind the holiday, the anxiety behind the apartment, the quiet credit card balance living underneath the beautiful wardrobe. Comparison doesn't just make us feel behind, it makes us make irrational decisions. We spend to keep up, we hide our real situation, we feel ashamed of a life that is in truth enough. Releasing comparison isn't about becoming indifferent, it's about returning your gaze to your own path. So what do we do with all of this? How do we begin to change something so deeply rooted? The first step is surprisingly gentle. You simply name what you notice. When you feel anxious opening your bank app, you say to yourself, "I notice I feel anxious." You don't fix it, you don't force positivity, you just acknowledge it with kindness. This is called emotional labeling, and neuroscience tells us it genuinely reduces the intensity of what we feel. The second step is curiosity. Where did this feeling come from? Not to blame anyone, not to excavate every childhood memory, but to simply ask the question. Because when we understand the origin of a belief, it loses some of its power over us. It stops feeling like truth and starts feeling like a very old story, one we're allowed to update. You are not your parents' relationship with money. You are allowed to write something new. Now, gently, let's talk about what healthy money habits actually feel like. They're not rigid, they're not punishing, they feel more like a quiet rhythm. Checking your finances once a week at a calm moment with a cup of something warm. Not to judge yourself, just to know, to stay in honest contact with your own life. Giving every pound or dollar a gentle purpose, not a strict category, but a loose intention. Saving what you can, even if it's small, because the amount matters less than the habit. Building a small buffer, not for wealth, but for the feeling of safety. Even a little changes everything. Learning to distinguish between spending that genuinely brings you joy and spending that's numbing pain. Both are real, both are human, but only one of them serves your future. This isn't about perfection, it's about becoming someone who stays in the room with their own finances. Perhaps the most underrated financial skill of all is self-compassion. When you make a mistake, and you will, because we all do, the way you speak to yourself matters enormously. Shame makes us spiral. It makes us give up, overspend to cope, and avoid even harder. Compassion, on the other hand, creates the safety we need to try again. You are not your bank balance. You are not your debt. You are not your worst financial month. You are someone learning, someone who grew up in a world that never taught you this properly. And you are here, now, asking better questions. That already means something. Your relationship with money can change, not overnight, but gently, over time, with patience. Start by noticing, then by understanding, then by choosing, one small decision at a time, something different. You deserve a financial life that feels safe. And that journey begins exactly here.